you so much for joining us for this webinar. I'm Rebecca Klein. I'm Assistant Head of School for Enrollment at the Valley School. Located in Seattle's Madison Valley, the Valley School is a pre-K through 5th grade independent school where learning is hands-on, relationships are strong, and childhood is honored. Valley students build academic skills, speak up for themselves and others, and move on to middle school prepared and proud. And today you'll have the opportunity to hear both about various aspects of child development and how Valley's philosophy and practice support healthy academic, social, emotional, and physical growth while also honoring the very special time that is childhood. Before we begin, I'll share a slide with some upcoming events where you can learn more about the people, programs, and place that make Valley unique. As you see, we have weekly campus tours. We have a preschool play date when kids can get onto campus and play in our outdoor spaces. And we have an open house in December. Any questions about those admissions events, you can direct to me. And now let's get to why we're really here, and that is to hear from our panel. Our panel are people who know kids and families well and have worked with thousands of them in their professional lives as a physician, a psychologist, and educators. First, we'll hear from Kathi Rosen. Kathi is a local pediatrician. She's the parent of a Valley alumna, and she's a dedicated Valley board member. She will talk about the benefits children reap when they are in a place and surrounded by adults who allow for curiosity to lead to practice, which in turn can instill a sense of fulfillment. Next, we'll hear from Feliza Guidero. Feliza is a clinical psychologist, the parent of both a current Valley student and an alumna, and Feliza is also a dedicated Valley board member. She will share some insights on social emotional well-being and how a safe school environment can foster focus, self-regulation, and a sense of wonder and fulfillment. Katie Rose Taulbee will speak after Feliza. Katie Rose is Valley's science teacher and outdoor play and learning coordinator. And that latter role is unique to Valley and vital as it is emblematic of the important role that play has in learning at Valley. Katie Rose will share about some of our day-to-day practices and opportunities for children to play for fun and for skill development and practice that feel like fun. And finally, we'll hear from Shauna Arista Reyes. Shauna is Valley's head of school, who has taught in and led progressive elementary schools for over 25 years. She will share some big picture information about the research and philosophy behind our practices and how they inform how we approach teaching both inside and outside of the classroom. Here is our lovely panel. We'll have some time for Q&A at the end, so you can either hold your questions for then and ask them live, or you can send them to me, the host of this meeting, in the chat, and you'll have to start a new chat to do that. And just a note about viewing, Shauna and Katie have slides. So Katie Rose have slides. So when they're speaking, you'll want to be sure you can see the slides, many of which involve great pictures of Valley kids and other information so you can see them and the slides. And now I will stop my screen share and I will pass the mic to Kathi in a moment. As soon as I track my mouse.
There we go. Hi,
Okay.
everybody. And apologies that I think my face is about to get big for your screen. So hopefully that's going to be okay. But good morning, good afternoon. I know we're at that transitional time, but I am super excited to be here with you guys and get to talk about play and learning at Valley. This has been an idea that I think a bunch of us got excited about. So I'm glad that we get to do this. And I'm going to share some thoughts with you about the developmental aspect and how kids grow and how they can grow at a place like Valley. I do have a Valley alum who's now a 9th grader in high school. And then I also have an older kid who is in college in her 2nd year. As a pediatrician, then, and as a parent, I, like you, know that childhood is magical. And we want our kids to feel this magic as they grow. In elementary school, we especially want kids to learn to love learning. And I think Valley is one of these magical places where these essential pieces can come together. This then sets them up for those strong school experiences in the future and for growth throughout their lives. You, as parents, have already seen this happen over and over. When kids are learning to walk and kids are learning to talk, they're doing that through play and with curiosity. And the adults in their lives are there supporting them in that, challenging them, celebrating the attempt and the failure on its path towards the success. And you can see easily then how play has informed their development over time. So, what starts off as curiosity and play becomes practice and hopefully still playful practice. And then that can become mastery and more of a purpose over time. So, Valley is a place that we see this over and over again. And sorry, I'm using a device that did not keep size the way I wanted it to. So apologies, I'm trying to move this around. So the Valley Playground is really an outdoor classroom. Recess at Valley is always changing. It is never stale. There's always so much learning and so much growth that's happening. From a motor skill and physical development standpoint, these are easy things to see. So we can see their gross motor development really go nuts when they're learning how to do things like turn these blue water collection rain barrels on their side and run on them like they're running or walking in a Western movie. When they're learning how to use stilts and use their whole body to learn those motions. When they're playing some more of the structured and intentional games out there as well. That's an easy aspect to see. But even in the fine motor components of physical development, there's space between some of the classrooms called the breezeway, and they'll have more manipulative and fine motor development there. They get to garden, they get to play with the chickens, and they have to be gentle in taking care of the chickens. Clearly, outdoor play, outdoor movement, outdoor learning supports physical development with aerobic activity. And that's always going to be healthy for kids, but they've also given the allowance for downtime and a reset and kind of a rest if needed at those times as well. Interestingly, being outside more actually decreases risk of developing myopia or nearsightedness. And so all that outdoor time that happens with recess and aftercare and using the outdoor classroom, doing science outdoors, having lunch outdoors, those are all really good for kids' physical development as well. The social emotional side of things, Felisa is going to get into more, but I just want to comment that from kind of the academic side, how we see this playful development support the academic growth includes having risk assessment strategies or skills that are getting stronger. They strengthen judgment and it builds resilience and courage. There's more opportunities for independent decision making in those types of playful environments and more choices for this I can or I will type experience. And that last part might sound familiar to you because it's rooted in this idea of growth mindset, which, if you want to read a whole book about it, Carol Dweck and her team and other folks in the 90s did some interesting studies. But in a little snippet, what they learned was that emphasizing perseverance and improvement helps our kids develop that love of learning and build resilience so that over time they have more oomph. Some might say more grit towards their long term goals and their long term growth. So, couple additional ways we've talked about how Valley and play supports learning, and some of the easy ways you can see it we've covered. But I'm going to give you a couple more snippets that I'm time limited on, but they are sort of geared towards sometimes where it's a little harder to see that that's how play can be a part of it, because it lends and it supports that growth mindset aspect. So this concept of I don't know how to do that yet is a big piece to build on. It allows kids to get curious and go deeper and understand the why behind things. So simply learning multiplication, it's possible to learn it through boring rules and algorithms, but it's much more interesting, engaging, and makes more sense when you get to learn it through pattern recognition And I remember watching a third grade teacher who came and did her work with the board one night, and just so exciting, these pattern games that were played in order to help all of us as adults who already know how to multiply understand what this really means and build on that. It was super, super exciting to see. Um, Valley makes it easy to experience learning through mistakes because you make mistakes in play all the time. And then that applies to kids taking some of those healthy risks in their academic work as well. So on the playground, you see kids basically doing engineering. They are digging, they are tracking things in the dirt for water to move. They're learning that if it goes over the sides, it's going to, wipe out and flood this other area. And that eventually can lend more towards how kids are learning how to do science and experiments and learning from that. When kids are in games on the playground, they have to manage disagreements and negotiate. And that can lead towards learning how to advocate for themselves, or maybe even in the future for policy changes at the school or as they're older. We also were informed recently that some amazing teachers, one of whom might be on this, presented about teaching executive function skills. They presented this work at a recent teaching conference. And my understanding is that all of their sessions were standing room only and full of laughter because other teachers really want to learn that. And the Valley teachers are really spot on with knowing how to do that. So, what I kind of want to leave you with is this idea that you can think of play and academics as separate things, but they're really not. One really informs the other and they support each other in a very important way, especially in this age group. And I would argue for longer as well. The play that happens at Valley is really purpose driven and feeds into that academic work. The curiosity and the commitment that comes through in their academics is super strong. And so they're really much more integrated and synergistic than separate. So for my family, we made a very intentional decision to have our youngest go to Valley and to actually stay there. So she was there first through fifth grade. I choose to continue to support Valley through the board work because I do believe in its mission. And part of that is that playful learning, that purposeful play, and the practice of community. And I still hang out with families that we befriended at Valley, and we're still raising our kids together. So Valley can give that healthy launch to what's next, but also helps you really, really appreciate this phase of life while you're there, both for your child and for your family. And I think that's it for my time. So I will pass the baton.
Thank you, Kathy. It's always nice to listen to what you have to say. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Feliza Guidero, and I'm a clinical psychologist. So I'm going to be talking with you about emotional and social development. So let's just start with what that is. I think it's easiest to understand in terms of thinking about skills and behaviors. So we've got in the early years, emotional identification and expression. So I have feelings. What are those? What does it look like when I'm joyful or upset or excited? We've got building friendships. What is a friend? How do we treat friends? Who do we call friends? Can we start to learn how to cooperate, be kind, take turns? Part of the friendships is building empathy, and that's understanding, oh, other people have feelings also that might not be my feelings, and they might express those feelings in different ways. My excited may not look like someone else's excited. And then throughout this, we're building confidence and self esteem, which essentially is developing a sense of self worth about who you are and what you can do. And then throughout this and in all spheres, we're growing more independent in physical, intellectual, social, and emotional areas. So those are the early years. And later on, of course, as we get through into the upper school years of elementary school, it gets more nuanced and complicated. If you have a child or no children at that age, you know that a whole saga can happen in the emotional and social scenes of one school day. Um, and so at that point, we're getting to managing emotions in a more regulated way and more appropriate to the situation. So maybe I'm upset that Kathi took my costume for the school play, but am I going to stomp off and not be in the school play? Maybe. But if I'm learning this skill, I'm problem solving and I'm trying to sort this out. And I loop back to Kathi later. Um, and it's learning about impact on others. It's starting to engage in conflict resolution and more complex compromise. And then also we start to see balancing one's own needs with those of the group, even if the group needs or feelings are different from one's own, as well as responsible decision making. That one, of course, will go straight up through like the mid to late 20s. Um, so that's a basis for what I'm talking about. And what I see mostly in my work with children and families is that right now in this world that we have, there's just so much to manage, not just in terms of what you have going on, activities and responsibilities and obligations, um, but also with the sheer amount of information and messaging there is to contend with. There's a message about anything that you can imagine, but a lot of it is about who and how to be in this world, what to like, what not to like, how to do this thing in the best way, um, how to live a lifestyle that will end up, with you being this and that. All of these messages about things. And it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming to all of us. And while I imagine most of us try to shield our children from a lot of that because it's a lot of input, they're going to be impacted by it one way or another because we have so much access to so much information. And all of that swirling around can lead to overwhelm, it can lead to stress, it can lead to anxiety. And all of that swirling around our kids' brains as they are growing and developing can really crowd in on all aspects of their learning. Because in order to learn well, you need to be able to access a clear brain. You need to be rested enough to engage with information. You need to be able to be flexible to see creativity or problem solve. Um, and of course, ideal learning situations is that we have accessed joy and wonder and creativity. And I'll come back to this later, but that is something that I'm going to say probably on most days, my kids hop into the car and just, guess what? Did you know about this? Do you know how much a brain weighs? Do you know this? Do you know that? Do you know this? And they are talking that fast. And I just have to sit there and take in all the joy and the wonder that they have learned that day. And so when we've got all that swirl, that all those messages, um, and all of those demands coming in, it impacts kids in terms of their general mood. They have a hard time accessing that joy and wonder. They may not be well rested. They may feel tense, and their brains and bodies simply won't be in a best position to learn, to take in information from the world, let it swim around a bit in your brain, and then come back and interact with it. For that kind of learning, you need space, you need time, and you need encouraging adults who are going to give you that opportunity and that encouragement to experiment, which is essentially playing. Somebody fabulous said that research is the highest form of play, and I think that's true because we need a chance to take the world in, think about it, make mistakes, and try again. And as we all know, that's how some of the most amazing, brilliant, life changing things have happened in our world. And so it's so important that your kids, in the place that they spend the bulk of their day, the bulk of their waking hours, that they're in an environment that supports and provides this. So Kathi just talked about how Valley provides a safe launching pad for your kids to grow physically as well in other areas of their development. And that's absolutely true emotionally and socially. As was mentioned, I have a current second grader at Valley and then a sixth grader who finished up last year. And Valley gave them such a good place to practice and grow in all of these areas. And not every moment was bright and shiny, of course, because, like I said, there are whole dramatic sagas happening in every aspect of school because we're growing, we're practicing, and we're learning. How does it feel when my friend maybe doesn't get to partake in this activity? Or, oh gosh, I was really grouchy today. Well, a Valley teacher might come along and say, are you tired? Are you feeling hungry? There's a chance for self-reflection and for the kid to take that in and then to engage in a different way. Um, and I will say that on a number of occasions, this is a little bit of a confession. Twice this happened, Katie Rose, where my children took very special, super cool secret science tools out of the science room. And of course, I discovered them at home and said, what is this? Oh, it's from the science room. Does Katie Rose know? No. All right. And then that gives me an opportunity to say, what do you think should happen next? You don't have permission to have that super cool, super secret science tool. And it's not Katie Rose's fault. There's amazing things in the science room. But my kids knew because they've done this at Valley repeatedly, it's going to be fine tomorrow. We don't feel nervous about going to Katie Rose and saying, sorry, Katie Rose, took this thing, didn't have permission, returning it, knowing full well that Katie Rose will say, thank you. Thank you for coming back to me. And this goes around and around, whether it's supporting with friendships, with staff, with groups of kids. And later on, of course, it gets more nuanced and complicated where the negotiations get more complicated. I mean, I think one of our fifth grade teachers once year was in a fierce negotiation with the entire class about getting some sea creatures in the room. And they negotiated so well. The next week, there were like 25 shrimp in tanks in the room. And this is the kind of place Valley is. So I want to highlight those examples in saying it's a supportive, responsive environment to where each kid is at in supporting their emotional and social growth. And now my kid in sixth grade, she confidently navigates emotional things because the scene gets dicier and more dramatic in middle school, of course. Um, and she knows how to navigate social situations. When she doesn't, she goes and finds a trusted adult because she's done it countless times at Valley. My kids know how to apologize and say, oops. And these are the kinds of life skills in terms of being kind to themselves, the planet, their community, and growing these kinds of relationships with themselves and others that I know is going to stick with them forever. It's a foundation that they'll have forever and will help them through life forever to be happy and fulfilled people. And I think at this time, as I close out my portion, Katie Rose has her full science equipment all returned to her at this time. Okay, I'll close there and turn it over to Katie Rose. Thank you.
Thanks, Feliza. The science lab is fully stocked, so they did a great job. Well, hi, everybody. So glad you're here. I'm Kathi Rose Taulbee. I'm the science teacher and the outdoor play and learning specialist at Valley. I'm not sure how much lunch background noise you'll hear, but you can just think of that as our playful learning soundtrack, little ambiance. Well, I'm really excited to be able to talk with you all today about play and learning at the Valley School. As adults, it's pretty easy for us to see these words as opposites. We often say things to ourselves or our kids, like you can play once you've done your work. But as educators, we really know that play is the language of children. That's how they access the rich and meaningful education that we have for them. They play to learn, and at Valley School, I feel really grateful that we are able to fully support them in their play. Rebecca, will you hit that next slide, please? Thank you. So play is complex, as this slide kind of takes a little peek at. And thankfully, all of our teachers are highly skilled at translating this language of play into academic standards and social emotional growth. So this is kind of a dissection photo, a little bit of anatomy of play, things that we as educators see when we are watching students engage in play. This is a photo from our outdoor classroom, which is a space on campus that's open to students during the school day and during recess, when I, as the teacher, am up there to kind of help guide their play. We have lots of open-ended materials that students can choose from, and I'll set out invitations or provocations to play so that they can try new things. So this is a photo of students doing something that is called finger knitting or tube knitting, something they've all gotten very excited about. And I just wanted to kind of like pull back the curtain and show some of the things that we see students learning from this type of play, which without the dissection might look kind of like just a photo of kids hanging out together and playing. So they're certainly gaining fine motor skills. This is a challenging craft. It involves a lot of really like fine pinching skills, looping thread over, being able to hold multiple pieces of yarn at the same time. These are things that they're going to need as they start writing for longer periods of time. So really developing their pincher grasp. They're practicing leadership skills. When new students come up, there's only one adult and a new skill to learn. So the students take it on themselves to teach the other students, which gives them the chance to kind of feel that they are the expert in something, which is important during a day where you're learning lots of new things, to feel as if you're the one in control. They're sharing an experience and building a shared experience together. This photo shows students from 2nd through 4th grade who don't always get a chance to see each other throughout the day. So they're getting a chance to play. They find each other later in the day to show their knitting or to talk about what they've done. Because this is at recess, it's something that they are opting into. Anybody can choose to come up or to choose to do something else with their time. So they're really developing this sense of identity and autonomy. What makes me feel good? What things can I do at recess that make me feel ready for the rest of my day, or that give me a sense of joy and connection? And then finally, I think it's important to highlight that this type of activity where you're engaging in play of your choice that feels good to you, it's activating your parasympathetic nervous system, which is like our body's rest and reset. So the school day is busy, and as Feliza talked about, our lives are busy. And for students to have moments in the day where they are able to be in this rest and reset zone, it helps set them up for success in the rest of their afternoon and in the rest of their day. All right, the next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so at Valley, we use intentional play to help students access these learning goals that we have for them. So both social, emotional, and academic standards. And there's 2 types of play that I want to highlight that you can see in this picture. So the top 2 slides are something that we would call unstructured play or non-guided play. These are things that students are opting into on their own. The rules are all student designed. There's not an adult telling students how to play or how to interact with these materials. These 2 pictures are demonstrating some really fun play that's been happening recently on the playground with ramps, experimenting with speed and height and wheels. And this type of play often gets called risky play. Risky play is very important for your development. Kathi talked a little bit about gross motor skills, and then also this ability to try new things, make mistakes, and then try again. So risky play helps students enter their growth zone, which is where we hope they'll be pretty much the whole academic day. We want them to be slightly out of their comfort zone in the place where they are ready to learn new things. Risky play helps you push your boundaries and try new things in a safe environment so that you can appreciate the risk with a lower stake. There's really interesting evidence and some studies coming out that are showing that children who engage in risky play in elementary school tend to make better choices in their teen and young adult lives because they've had a chance to practice taking risks with lower stakes, so that as they get older and the stakes get bigger, they've already had a chance to kind of play some of these scenarios out. So we're really lucky to be able to allow students to practice that at the Valley School. And then the bottom 3 pictures show something that we might call structured play or guided play. So these are still examples of play in the classroom, but they're oftentimes things that have more concrete rules or things that teachers have invited the students to do. So the picture on the left shows a game from our math curriculum, Spill the Beans. So this game is helping them practice their addition and then pre-multiplication skills. It's a way for them to practice these skills in a way that feels more fun and playful, and it's with their friends, which is key. We know that kids are very social, and so being able to practice these skills with peers is amazing for them. The middle photo shows one of the games that was referenced when we were talking about executive functioning skills. So some of our teachers have been creating these games to help students practice different executive functioning skills. This particular game is helping students with frustration tolerance and kind of figuring out what you do when you reach your limit. You can choose to take a break, you can ask for help, you can keep trying, persevering. Those are all fine options. And so this game, which is a version of Pictionary, helps students kind of feel what it feels like to be at your frustration tolerance. And then we also use guided play to help with targeted learning goals. So when we're working one-on-one with students or in small groups, we can really use playful learning skills to help them reach the goals we want. So this is a fun game called Alphabet Squish, where you're practicing letter recognition, but you're also practicing fine motor skills, squishing Play-Doh. It's fun to play with Play-Doh. And we know that when learning is fun and joyful, it is also memorable. And so oftentimes these playful learning strategies are what is needed to help students kind of solidify their new skills that we're teaching them in class. So we're using these playful learning strategies to help them access the academic and social emotional learning, but maybe even more importantly, because we know it brings a sense of joy. And when we know that when students feel joy and feel connected to their teachers and the people around them, their classmates, that they are developing a lifelong love of learning, which is really the point of elementary school education. And then finally, I think my last slide. Yeah. So we know that play grows with the child as your child grows, and it provides them a lasting impact. Both Kathi and Feliza have students who are old enough through the elementary school world that they're seeing this progress, which is so cool. I love this picture up top of a pre-K student exploring the pan balance, which is a way to measure things by weight or mass, and then fourth graders using the same tool as a part of their math curriculum. So the fourth graders are now practicing measuring mass and practicing metric conversion. But when they use this tool, it's familiar to them because they've already played with it in pre-K or in kindergarten. They know how it works on an intuitive level, and now they can help use that tool to help them access the higher learning of these new math concepts. Similarly, on the playground, we see this collaborative play kind of level up as they get older. So on the left, these first graders are working together to achieve a common goal, lifting this huge rock out of the ground. How cool. And then on the right, our upper school students, this is a picture of them engaging in a highly complex imaginative game, which has many different levels, physical building, world building. And as Kathi and Feliza talked about, it is really helping them develop complex social skills. So Feliza talked about the skill of balancing your needs with the group needs. And in these type of games on the playground, this conflict comes up a lot. Everybody has a different idea of how they want the game to go or how they want to play. And I think that one of my favorite things about Valley is that we really respect what happens on the playground. And when the play ends, if there is lingering conflict, it doesn't then just get brushed away and we move on to our next subject. The teachers make time for meaningful recess meetings where the students have a chance to debrief the play, to talk about what went well, what needs to be changed, how they can make guidelines and rules to make the play more fun tomorrow when they engage again at recess. I think that's really unique to Valley, and we see the impact that that makes on students' social emotional growth. So I think it is probably clear by now that I could talk about play and learning for a very long time. I really appreciate you all joining us today, and I'm now going to pass it off to Shauna, our head of school.
Thanks so much, Kathi Rose. Welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. I want to start by pointing out how there are many schools that are reducing the amount of time that they have for recess and free play because they are, concerned about having academic time. And I just want to say that that is the wrong way to think about it because it is at the expense of all of these important parts of kids' development that our panel has been talking about, right? Kids need to have those breaks from their academic time out on the playground, and that's what builds synapses in their brain. That's what gives them that the physical interaction and the fresh air, exercise, builds their healthy bodies. Kathi mentioned about eye development and those kinds of things. If you don't have time to be out on the playground, getting fresh air, engaging in risky play, and exploring, it's going to be at the expense of those things, and it has been shown to not actually improve academic outcomes. They also need to have those interactions with friends for their mental health. And that was some of the things that Feliza was talking about friendships and empathy and the chance to make mistakes and working with each other. Also, as Kathi Rose pointed out, it's a false dichotomy, right? Play and academics are not actually the opposite. When all of those things can come together, that's the most powerful kind of learning. So this graphic that we have here on the screen is from the Harvard Graduate School of Education. They have an institute called Project Zero that did a lot of studies around playful learning and what it means. And the way that they were defining it is being at that intersection of choice, of curiosity, and of joy. So when those three things come together, that's what playful learning really looks like. And that's the pedagogical approach that we are using in our classrooms. And those are some of the things that Kathi Rose pointed out. And the power of that kind of an approach to schooling helps kids to be leaders in their own thinking, to have to work on those skills of collaboration and collaborative learning. It promotes experimentation and risk-taking and encourages imaginative thinking. And those are the kind of skills that really people need that's what they call the 21st century skills, or the skills for the fourth industrial revolution. This is sometimes what it's referred to in the literature. But what that means is that they're the jobs of the future, some of which we don't even know what they are yet. Those are the skills that are going to be critical. Yes, reading, yes, writing, yes, math, all of those things are important. But what really makes students and then professionals successful is that ability to have a problem solving, collaboration, and critical thinking skills. So if we could go to the next slide, I'm going to just show a couple more examples of what happens in our classrooms. As I think it was Kathi that was talking about the importance of having kids love their learning. So you can see here are some different examples of the way that play shows up in the classroom for that academic learning. On the left, there is a kindergarten student who is playing with letters, right? He's taking letters, moving them around, trying out different sounds, seeing what those sounds sound like. Some of you may have even explored this with your own children, right? When you take this sound away and you add that sound, rhyming is an example of that. It's a way of playing with sounds and playing with letters and playing with words that makes you a better reader and makes you excited about reading and about language. And that keeps going through the grades. On the bottom right there is another literacy activity with second graders where they are thinking about adjectives and they're taking sentences and adding in adjectives or replacing different adjectives and trying out different sentences and playing with language in that way, sharing it with each other, sharing it with their teacher, and experiencing the joy of that kind of language. On the top right are some students from the upper school playing a math game. Again, that idea that, sure, you can practice your multiplication skills on a worksheet, but if you are practicing them in a game with a partner, and you see they each have a whiteboard. I don't know if you can tell in this picture, but they each have a whiteboard where they can write down their thinking and they can show it to each other and they can discuss it. It gets kids so much more engaged and so much more excited about the work that they are doing. And when you have kids that are excited about school and wanting to learn, there's almost no stopping them. So that's what we are really working on, getting kids set up for the skills that they need for the classroom, as well as the social emotional skills that they need for life, which is going to set them up beautifully for the future. So I just wanted to kind of give an opportunity to wrap that all together, but I know that we are getting short on time, so I want to make sure that we have some time for our question and answer, because this panel is really full of some smart people with some great ideas, and I think that we have some questions for them. So I'm going to turn it back over to Rebecca for question and answers.
Thanks so much, Shauna and Kathy and Katie Rose and Feliza. I'm gonna, we've had a couple questions come in the chat, so I'll start with those, and then also recognizing that we are at our time limit. Obviously, this group could talk about Valley and child development and playful learning for a long time, but we also understand that some folks may need to, may have other things to get to. So we'll make the recording of this available, of course, and we'll send it out to those who were here today and then others who are kind of in our on our mailing lists. So here's a first question, and then if you have other questions, you can raise your hand or put them in the chat and I'll ask. One is, and panel, you can kind of chime in as you feel fit. How can I incorporate playful learning? So some of the ideas we talked about today into my child's routines at home.
I'll jump in here, Rebecca, and then others can add in. But I think one of the biggest things in this age group is to love reading together, and to spend that time reading together. Even when your kid is building those reading skills and loving that independence of doing more on their own, still reading together and showing that joy that you have for reading. And maybe you have to rekindle that joy given how busy life is, but sharing good books together is great. One of my favorites for young kids is Dory Phantasmagory, because it's a bit silly. It's still got some black and white line drawings, but it's an entry to chapter books, and the parents can enjoy it the way that kids can. And then when kids get to be more independent readers and they can read it more on their own, it's really fun too. So I would just say read a lot together.
Thanks, Kathy. Here's another question that came in. Let me grab it. This is another related to home too. What can somebody spoke about kind of the stress and anxiety that adults or children may feel? And what can we do as adults to lessen that stress, our own stress or anxiety, or that which our children feel?
This seems for me. So I'll start. And I think there's a lot that I could say here, but I think some of the big things are that to the degree that you can, knowing that you can, this is sort of my motto, like let go of everything I can possibly let go. And yes, that might include like an organized or uncluttered home or a certain bedtime or some of these things that I, as a parent, and I think others, sort of hold on to for our own routine and predictability. I do legitimately, if I'm having a hard time letting things go, sing Let It Go from Frozen. I do that, and that helps me tremendously. And then the kids join in, and it lightens the mood, and singing is just good for your all around mood and brain. So I let go of everything I can. And yes, sometimes it involves like some personal talking to myself, like take a break and, we're going to let this and that go. And, and then the other part is really trying to put in to myself, like, nourishment, comfort, rest as much as I can, because all the stress, fatigue, hustle bustle that I experience, my kids are going to experience. They're going to feel that if I don't manage myself. And so, to the best of my ability, I manage myself. I know it's extremely difficult. Um, and that puts me in a better position with them. So yeah, let it go, frozen, sing, and then nourish yourself, are the things I would say. All easier said than done, but I'll say that for time's sake.
Thanks so much, Feliza. Here's another question that's come in. How does Valley's approach compare to or differ from Seattle Public Schools at early ages, like K to second grade? And then part two, for older ages, can you talk a bit about preparation to move on to more traditionally focused middle schools?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can talk about this a little bit, and then if others want to chime in as well. I think that, Valley takes a really developmental approach. We're thinking about what is right for kids at the different developmental levels. So in pre-K and kindergarten, we know that kids need a lot of time to play, a lot of unstructured time, a lot of child centered kinds of play. And that we can as kids move through the grades, that can shift, right? So I think that it is very different than in the public schools in the kindergarten and first grade, where we have a little bit more of that unstructured time. We have a lot more time outside for play. We have smaller classes so that we can have more teacher-student ratio, so we can have small groups of kids that are working on exactly the skill that they need to work on when they are in class. And we can do that in that playful way, because we can think about what is the skill that the kids that are actually in front of me need to be working on, and how can I do that within games, within play, within the and again, thinking about that playful learning, where it's about what that intersection of joy and autonomy and curiosity. So sometimes that looks like teacher-driven games. And sometimes it looks like, exploring with materials. And sometimes it looks like, giving kids books that they are working on reading because that is what is at the right reading level for them, but with a lot of support from the staff. So as they get older, we're still able to have that ratio, still able to think about what are the skills that the students need, able to move them into different groups, shifting, not just looking at what is on the sort of the list of things that need to be accomplished in that grade level. That is important, but that's not the only thing. If somebody is ready for more of a challenge, we want to be able to give them more of that challenge. And if somebody isn't ready for that, no amount of repetition on a skill that they're not ready for is going to allow them to learn that. They need to get some foundational pieces in and be able to move more quickly to be ready for middle school. But what we hear from our families and from the middle schools themselves is that not only are our students ready academically, and some, more than ready beyond what is expected, they're really able to do some of those other kinds of skills, like working with other people, public speaking, advocating for themselves with adults, those executive functioning skills like organization, knowing how to manage their time, those kinds of skills are super critical as you get older and the work becomes more complex, and that's one of the places where our students shine.
Yeah, thanks, Shauna. And I'll just add, before I came to Valley, I've been at Valley since the summer, but I've taught in independent middle and high schools in Seattle for 20 plus years. And I've taught a lot of Valley grads. That means I've taught a lot of Valley grads, and they were gritty, they got messy, and they loved learning. And that was actually part of what made me want to come to Valley. So they're doing great in the world. Well, I wanna be respectful of everyone's time, including those who may have patients, clients, students that they need to teach very soon. But I will, just in wrapping up, I want to thank everyone for being here today. Of course, Kathi, Feliza, Kathi Rose, and Shauna for sharing your time and knowledge with us. I hope that our discussion today helped you get to know Valley and understand both the philosophy behind our practices and what they really look like day to day, and of course, how they benefit students and families. I'll share one more slide with some reminders about how you can get to know us and see us in action, which is different than hearing adults talk about us. And we hope to see you on campus and invite you to reach out if you have questions. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, great to see
Thanks,
you all.
everyone.
Okay.
You want to
Nice
stop the
job.
recording?
Yeah, yeah. Yes.
Well done, everybody.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been holding my breath.
Oh, Shauna.
I don't know
I
why.
like your
Did you think we
I
were
like your
gonna
necklace bling.
Oh, thank you.
It was very nice for today.
Yeah. Shauna, what did you think was gonna happen? I'm just curious.
Nothing.